Last month, Governor Corbett signed into law Senate Bill 1030, which reformed Pennsylvania's unemployment compensation law. The Senate Labor and Industry Committee agreed at the time to look at two key issues, voluntary quit and willful misconduct, that were not part of that legislation. State Representative Ron Miller has authored a bill that deals with these two items and is here to talk about House Bill 1754. Representative, unemployment compensation can be a really touchy subject to discuss, can it not?
Well, of course. When a person's on unemployment, when they lose a job, we want to be able to help them. And we have a system that has been established that should be able to help them. The problem is that the system is basically insolvent right now. And we need to make sure that it really does impact people that have been unemployed for no cause of their own. It's just a loss of job because their employer doesn't have the work or something like that. And we also have to assure that that they are out there actively looking for a job. And that's basically what the legislation we already passed addressed, is the active work search, but we need to do more.
Looking at this realistically, there is a cost involved here, and people, I think, oftentimes forget that. How much is unemployment compensation costing the Pennsylvania taxpayer?
It's an interesting question because it really doesn't cost the Pennsylvania taxpayer directly money in that sense, but it impacts the employers in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and their ability to hire new people, or more importantly, to keep people on staff. So as the costs of the unemployment compensation system rise, which is borne mostly by the employer, some is borne by the employee when the system goes insolvent. The system is insolvent now. But what happens is the costs to the employer continue to rise, not from the state, but because we borrow money from the federal government. And there is a mechanism where there is an extra assessment on the federal unemployment fee that is charged to an employer, and that assessment will continue to rise over the next couple years to try paying off this debt for the money we borrowed, and we're already around $4 billion that we owe the federal government.
And we've started repaying that already, have we not?
We have, but we continue to borrow money too. So we're borrowing more than we're repaying. The assessment went up, but we're still borrowing money from the federal government. Until we create more jobs and get this economy turned around, that's going to be the case for a couple years yet.
Let's talk about your bill. I think many people would be surprised to learn that you can collect unemployment comp if you voluntarily quit or if you commit willful misconduct against your employer.
Yeah, and most people would say, well, that's not right. But what's happened over the years when there have been decisions made by the people that hear these cases, somebody applies for unemployment, if they're denied and they appeal, and even the people that review the case originally, we have had cases where people have voluntarily left a job for whatever reason to move to another state, to go to college, and they've applied for unemployment and been granted that unemployment. Now, if it's to help people that lose their job because of problems in the workplace where there just isn't a job available for them, most people agree we should have unemployment comp to help them through difficult times. But to allow a person to voluntarily quit and move to a different phase of their life, maybe it's going to college, just doesn't really make sense, and it's a cost on the system that the system can't bear. The same goes, as you mentioned, with willful misconduct. And willful misconduct, everybody knows what it is. It's one of those things, we think we know what it is. But when you get to different judges making these decisions and people implementing what they believe it should be, it doesn't have any kind of a standard. So what this bill does is it tries to put a definition of willful misconduct into the law so that we don't have people making decisions that maybe are different in the Pittsburgh area, the Erie area, the Philadelphia, York area, and get some consistency. But also make it very plain. There are some things that if you do in the workplace, theft, attacking a supervisor, things like alcohol and drugs, there are things, that's willful misconduct. You're not eligible for unemployment. And I do have to point out, These two items were in a bill that was introduced by Representative Scott Perry. It did not become the bill that we did pass dealing with unemployment compensation before we broke for the summer, but it's very important to note that he had these two measures in his bill. I have authored this just to continue the debate and move the discussion forward so we can try to put some more common sense into our unemployment comp system.
If you have questions about this or any other legislative issue, Representative Miller's contact information will be on the screen in a few seconds. I'm Scott Little. Thanks for spending 5 minutes with State Representative Ron Miller.